Welcome to episode 23. My guest today is Jim Ramos. He's the founder of Men in the Arena, and for the past 30 years, Jim has been leading people to pursue their best versions of themselves, especially men. For over 20 years, I've built businesses to support influencers and entrepreneurs throughout the United States. In 2020, I ran for U.S. Congress in North Central Florida, and now in 2021, I'm spearheading the launch of a new social media platform to embrace faith, family, and freedom. This podcast is designed to build your faith, encourage entrepreneurship, and to promote principle over politics. I'm Ryan Chamberlain, and this is Now You Know. Before we jump into our show, let me tell you about TPN. It's a new social media platform that's an alternative to Facebook. I know you're tired of the tracking, canceling, and the direction big tech keeps going, so make a change. Just go to gettpn.net/NYK. It only takes a few seconds to get your account and then download the app. The True Patriot Network is an invitation-only private server platform created by patriots for patriots, and its mission? To promote and protect the values of faith, family, free enterprise, and free speech. So join the soon-to-be millions by going to gettpn.net/NYK and start your journey today. Now, my guest today, Jim Ramos, he's the author of Strong Men, Dangerous Times, 5 Essentials Every Man Must Possess to Change His World. His podcast, Men in the Arena podcast, has been downloaded by over 250,000 men in 90 different countries. As he's partnered with thought leaders, his goal really is to equip men to serve God, their families, and their communities. Help me welcome Jim Ramos.
Our ministry is named after a speech that Teddy Roosevelt gave in 1910 called the Men in the Arena. And I think it really symbolizes grit because we want our men to get out of the bleachers into the arena, to be gritty, tough, enduring, and never give up. It's not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbled or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again. But there's no effort without error or shortcoming, but who actually strives to do the deeds, who knows the great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least he fails while daring greatly, so that his place will never be numbered with those cold and timid souls who know neither death nor defeat. Does your marriage need a victory this morning? Do you need a miracle? Do you have a wayward son or daughter and you need God to give them a miracle? Do you have a friend who needs a miracle? Do you have a career that you're trying to go to that next level? Is there a ministry in this church that God is calling you to? Young singles, is there a purity that God has asked you to hold off until you meet that one person? What is it for you? I don't know your story, but I know this. We can't get there except through the love of Jesus and the grit that he offers through his son, that Jesus offers us, which is the stubborn refusal to quit. So I say you hang on until God does that miracle in Jesus' name.
All right, everyone, my guest today from Men in the Arena, you're going to get to meet him, and I'm excited to have Jim Ramos with us here today. Jim, how are you doing? Everything good over there?
Hey, it's nice and soggy, just like we like it in Oregon.
I like that. Well, listen, I am a huge fan of what you're doing. You're gaining serious traction right now in the social media world, but also just with the impact you're having on men. And I want to dive right into it. I appreciate your time, and you and I both agree on this one sentence I'm about to say, and we believe that there is an all-out attack on families, and especially an attack on men. So Men in the Arena is something that was birthed out of a passion that you have, but tell us a little bit about your background. I want our viewers, our listeners, to get to know you a little bit, to hear about what you're doing. I'm definitely going to encourage them to jump onto your podcast. I think it's spectacular. But tell us about your background, what led you to start Men in the Arena podcast, and give us some of that backstory, and then I've got a few questions for you.
Yeah, just the short of it was I had a radical near-death experience when I was playing college football and had a knee injury and was overdosed during the surgery by the anesthesiologist. God called me in ICU, and I was blind for 3 days from the drugs to enter into full-time ministry, which I did about 3 years later. And that ministry was to teenagers. I did youth ministry for about 20 years. Had an opportunity to fly out to Colorado, speak at a men's event, and God really moved. And I thought, man, I really interact better with men than teenagers. I was a 45-year-old guy at the time, and started reflecting on, how God made me. I'm big, and I'm just a big, burly guy, and I like to do manly things, and I connect really well with men because I am one. I speak their language, and I just sat there reflecting on that in a coffee shop in Sisters, Oregon, and God called me to work with men. I had realized that the biggest problem I saw in the church and in society and as a youth pastor was men who are not connected to their churches and to their communities and to their children, and that really wrecked me. So we decided in 2011 to start pursuing our own organization. My kids call me an entrepreneur. I call myself an idiot. I went and I started writing books to the people group that doesn't read books, men. I targeted the people group in the church that's the percentage-wise the most under-budgeted group in the church, that is men. And I targeted a group that's probably the most vilified publicly and attacked in our society, and that is men. So we just went for it. We went after it and started a nonprofit organization called Men in the Arena. And we've been growing ever since, and we entered the digital arena, and things started really taking off for us because we saw a real need there. And super excited. We just surpassed Promise Keepers on one of our platforms about 3 days ago. So I'm really excited about what God is doing. But that's how we got there, man. It was just a realization. I had a Popeye moment, and I just couldn't stand it anymore. We had to do something to help these guys.
I love it. I love the story. This podcast, I speak to a lot of faith influencers, a lot of entrepreneurial influencers. I'm an entrepreneur, been, since early 20s. I'm 47, so most of my adult life, till I ran for U.S. Congress, was focused on business. And of course, I did not win that race, so I'm focused on business as well. But and continued to do that. This podcast, however, one of the things I like to talk about is your passion, taking a passion, which is what you've done exactly. I want to speak to our entrepreneurs right now. And then you are an entrepreneur because you have created a business model that is able to help drive your passion and benefit a lot of people. The passion came first, though.
Yep.
Here's what we want to accomplish. Here's what we want to be known for. Here's what we want to have an impact on. And then you created a business model around it. Now, with that being said, you just touched on it a second ago. But you're speaking to men all over the place. You're working with men. This is what you focus on. You've got your business model moving, but now it's how do you have the impact. So I want to know from you, just what are you seeing as the biggest challenges Christian men are faced with today that you feel like you're helping them overcome? I know you said connecting them to their church, but specifically, is there a couple of things that jump out at you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and everything we do revolves around this thing, is men are really, really confused. We have bathrooms now that are unisex. I'm out here in Oregon. It's crazy. I just saw a thing on social media that a boy dressed as a girl was a homecoming queen of his high school. Men are just so confused. I mean, I don't even know what letters of the alphabet to use to describe a human. We use personal pronouns now. My personal pronoun is M60 machine gun, in case you want to know. But, it's just really confusing for men, and men are conquerors. And if men see a battle that they can't win, they tend to not try to climb that hill because they know they're going to die on it, and they don't see it as a worthy cause. But if a man knows his directive and knows his target, he will charge that hill even if it means his death. And so what we have done, Ryan, is we have targeted men by giving them something to shoot at. I've got a book here I wrote, Strong Men, Dangerous Times. It was a #1 bestseller. That defines manhood. So what we've done is we've defined manhood, and we've said, guys, this is what it is. You don't have to be confused anymore. And so when I travel and speak, I'm heading to New York next week, actually, to keynote event, a conference, and we talk about the same thing every time. Here's what a man is. Here's what a man does. Here's what a man is. Here's what a man does. And when a man gets it, everyone wins.
I believe it. That's some interesting insight there. And I'm thinking with what we're seeing and hearing in the news, and it's unfortunate that it's just nonsense. But you have to hear it day in and day out, day in and day out, day in and day out. Men, and I never thought about it this way, but they really have a reason to be angry. They may not know what to do with that anger, but angry when their families are being attacked, when their mindset's constantly being attacked, and you have chosen to do something about it. I want to ask you this question because I think that men are dealing with some challenges when it comes to how they should be raising their children or their involvement with children, or there's an all-out attack on fathers specifically. So let's talk about the man's role in raising children in this world, this spiritually, politically, in this connected, we're all interconnected, kids have access to things. Tell me about your perspective on a man's role with raising their children.
Well, statistically, and I won't get into the statistics, but when a man is present, the entire family wins. When a man is absent, everyone loses. So I would say this. First of all, dad, you have to engage. 50% of couples today get divorced. 50% of those children won't see their dad for an entire year. So dad, I would say get engaged in the daily lives of your kids. God, I believe, has created you to be the leader. So the problem with that, Ryan, is guys will look at you and they'll look at me and they'll go, well, man, I can't do that. And all I tell guys is this. I say, you just do the one thing that you weren't doing yesterday. Just do one thing different to engage your children, to engage your wife, to lead your family, navigate with them through these obstacles that we call American society.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Jim, most of the men that would come to you, okay, or come across your information, men in the arena, stumble across it, maybe they're in a broken marriage, maybe they're having difficulty with direction, maybe they didn't have the right guidance as they were being raised up, so they don't even know what the right example is. But most men, I think, most good men, and there's a lot of them out there, they want to get better. I mean, they wake up, they're not saying, man, I'd like to be worse tomorrow than I am today. No, throughout the day, they may be wishing they were better at this, wanting to be better at that, thinking I need to get better with my kids, thinking I need to get better with my commitment. But we all have habits. So what direction do you give a man that's listening to this today that wants to get better, but just doesn't know the steps to how to break bad habits, or, and that really rolls me into my final question, which I want to come back to in a second. But tell me what the direction, when people first come in, what's that initial push direction to help them begin down the right road that you give them?
Well, we have a mountain illustration that we ask guys to join us on that journey. The first level is get involved in our online forum with 11,000 guys. Get involved in our podcast. We're going to give you a bunch of free stuff. I have a book right now called Tell Them What Great Fathers Tell Their Sons and Daughters. It's free on meninthearena.org. They can go get that. So we give them free stuff. But the next level, Ryan, which is the most important level, is this. Men have to plug in to a community with other men. call it a team, call it a small group, call it whatever you want. 1 out of 18 men in our country is not involved in any kind of group. 1 out of 8 in the church today in America is. So 1 out of 8, out of every 100 guys, you have less than 10 guys in a small group. And these guys need to bounce ideas off other men. They need to confess things they're struggling with other men. They have to get into a small group. And we've actually systematically developed a virtual small group system for guys all around the country, because we just see the value of a man getting into a group of other men, a band of brothers that will call him in, call him up, and call him out.
I love it. So let's kind of pull it back together then. Let's talk about the resources. You mentioned a book. I'm actually going to put the link to your book. I want you to talk about your newest book that's out there, where they can get it, whether it's audiobook or read it or download it, however. And then tell us the best way to get connected with what you're doing, because even if a man is in a group locally, they might want to tap into some additional stuff as they're riding down the road, or as, just to grow. I know even though I can attend local things, oftentimes I'm buying personal development items along the way, and you have some resources for that. So tell us how to get connected. Tell us how to get your book. And then we'll make sure it's put in the description here in this podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is the book, my latest book, Strong Men, Dangerous Times. It speaks to exactly what you were talking about. We're living in dangerous times to be a man. They can just, honestly, Ryan, if they just go to meninthearena.org, that will give them access to our podcast, my free online book, Tell Them, all of my resources. We've got 5 small group books that guys can work through that are attached to this book. I would just say, man, go to the website.
I would say to our viewers today and listeners, men and women, I mean, there's hope out there. There's great people like Jim Ramos that have dedicated their life to helping people move down the road in a better way. And this is one of those podcasts that gives you some connection to that. So, Jim, thanks for being on with us, man. We really appreciate you.
Hey, I appreciate you, Ryan, all that you're doing. And, man, God bless you and Godspeed in everything you're doing.
Thanks so much. All right, that wraps up this episode, but here's 2 quick things to do. First, hit the subscribe button wherever you're at so that you can catch the next episode. Then share it on one of your platforms that you're already on. And remember, you can get social now on the new value-driven platform called TPN. That's True Patriot Network. Just go to gettpn.net/NYK, and you'll be able to catch the video version of this podcast there as well. Now you know.